let's see, it is 3:30. So let's start fresh. And first of all, I'd like to welcome all of you today. And we have an incredible guest. His name is Jim Estill. I've known him for over 20 years. I think it's 25 years or something. And Jim Estill is the CEO of Danby Appliances and Shipperbee. He's also a Canadian technology entrepreneur, executive, and philanthropist. And just before 3:30 hit, he was telling me even more of some of that philanthropy work he's doing with building ventilators. So maybe we'll talk a little bit about that. But in 2018, Jim was awarded the Order of Canada, and he is right now generously sharing his time with us because he is incredibly busy, and he really does have a big heart and a big passion for helping people with success strategies. And I know that about you, Jim, and I really want to focus in part today on the mental wellness that we need right now, because around the globe, people are either working from home or they are laid off and now staying home. And there's so many mental health issues around that in terms of the fear of the unknown, the disruption to our routines, and just the sheer boredom for some people who are now laid off. So can you talk to us about the importance of creating new routines and some of those success habits that we can start to implement now in this time?
So you said exactly the words I would say: develop your success habits. And I knew you were going to ask me about this, so I thought of some of my success habits. And I just came in from a 90-minute walk. Now, how do I do a 90-minute walk when I have double the volume I normally have? That was a conference call, which was previously scheduled. And it's a gorgeous day out, or it's not like real sunny, but it's a nice enough day. So I went for a walk, and that is one success habit. So I've got my Fitbit, and I always do my number of steps. And I believe you should develop all of those sorts of success habits.
And you know what? That walking and getting outdoors is so crucial right now, because what I have found is a lot of my clients are saying, and it was me for the first little while too, because of the strangeness of the break in routines for a lot of people and new focuses, which was too much news watching, causing people to overeat and then stay put. The panic causes you sometimes to stay still. But do you find that as soon as you get outside and break that it goes a long way in helping you to keep calm?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all about what are the habits that support you. I always had a workout habit at the gym. I actually have some equipment here, but you don't need any equipment. So I have to discipline myself to make sure I got my home workout habit, because I don't want to, as you say, become fat and slovenly, sit on the couch all day. Although I have heard people say in previous generations, our parents were called to go overseas and fight in the wars, and that was what you had to do in the past. And we're called to stay home and sit on our couches. That's how tough our life is.
Oh my goodness. So let's talk about the daily plans. One of the things that you had mentioned in your daily plan is that you always ask yourself, what 3 things will I have accomplished today? So is 3 the magic number? And what else do we need to add to this plan?
So I always do 3, and I don't know why it's a magic number. 3 is not daunting. It's not like the problem with my to-do list. My to-do list has 39 things on it. It's too daunting. And it's easy if I get into the habit of not getting all 39 done, of saying, nothing happened when I didn't get them all done. 3 things I can. And the other question I ask myself, what would I like to have done by the time the day's over? And just that little motivation helped me to do it. I like planning the night before what I'm going to do today. So I don't go to bed without looking at what's my next day and what's my plan for that.
And do you think this is important not only for the people who are working from home, but as a general rule of thumb, if you're home right now, you need to have a daily plan?
Well, I do, but I'm maybe even over planned or over disciplined. But if you're home now without work, then your job is to prepare for when you get back to work. So wouldn't it be nice to get back to work and say, oh, and my car is perfectly vacuumed and detailed and great, and my closet is perfectly organized, and my garage is clean. And if anyone wants to come over here and clean up my garage and my closets and my car, then they can do it. Except they have to stay there 2 meters away. That's the way we work. But
you know what was really so great about what you just said is it contained a message of hope in that as well, because sometimes people are singing the song, it's the end of the world as we know it, and people are really afraid that things aren't going to go back to normal. So you're someone in business, you're seeing a lot of what's happening globally. We will go back to somewhat of a normal life after.
Oh, I am completely convinced we will. And I'm not saying it's going to be perfect, it's not going to be good, but we can look at China. China went through this 6 months ago, 5 months ago, and we read it in the news, but it didn't sink in because that was China. That's way around the other side of the world. I even have an office there. I've got employees there, but still, it's, oh, what do you mean you're locked down? Oh, that doesn't sound like a big deal. Then when it comes here, but if you look at over there, they're basically out of lockdown. So they're not still in lockdown. They're not having very many new cases. It's completely flattened. And the way it works in China is the Chinese New Year is like our Christmas. Everybody comes home, and the factories are populated with millions of people from the countryside. They fly in, or they take the train in, more likely, the train and the buses to go to these factories, and then they go home for Chinese New Year, and then they come back after that. I was worried that when they all came back, that meant it would it would light up again, but it didn't really light up again. And we buy a lot in China. We're getting production done, and we've got factories there, and so it's more or less back to pretty well usual. And it's kind of like 9/11, very sad, very upsetting, very scary, but like we kind of go on. Like, is terrorism still around? Yes, it could be, but it doesn't. I don't think about it anymore.
Right. And so important to keep focused that things will return to normal. Life will resume. And in the meantime, we can use this time to make the best of a situation and create these great plans and get to those projects that we may have been even procrastinating on. And speaking of procrastination, do you believe in having a reward system throughout the day so that you say to yourself, okay, so I'm going to do this thing that I'm putting off, and after I do that, then I will chat with a family member, or then I will go for a walk, whatever the case may be?
I do have some reward. So I drink tea, and I say, okay, I won't have a cup of tea until I do this or that. And I play games. So I will say, how many emails do I have in my inbox? And I'll say, okay, it's 3 o'clock. How many am I going to have by 4 o'clock? And I try to beat my, I think I'm going to have 67. Oh, great. I got down to 62, or oh no, I'm up at 78. But I kind of try to play this little game with myself. At the same time, I try to be realistic.
That's so fun. And you're the one that helped me figure out to get that book, Actionable Gamification.
Oh, yeah.
Which I haven't yet read. When I ordered it and it came to my desk, it was like, wow, the font is so small and the book is so big, but I'm going to get to it. But I think in your email blast, and by the way, everyone, Jim puts out a great email blog, and I'll include that in the link to everyone when I send out an email with this recording, so that you can follow his writing, because you always have such great advice. And one of the pieces of advice that you talked about is avoiding distractions. So let's talk about that right now, because that's big for a lot of people. So there are two kinds of distractions. There are kinds of distractions that we have control over, which is watching the news constantly, or spending too much time in social media, or going down and checking what's in the refrigerator 100 times while we're home, and then going, oh, same thing, shutting the door. And there's also the distractions that we can't control, which is maybe now somebody you live with is also working from home and in your space, or maybe your kids are home, or maybe you have pets that are distracting you. So what are your suggestions on avoiding distractions, those you can and cannot control?
Well, those that you can, part of what you do is just make life a little easier or a little more difficult. And it doesn't take very much. Just making things a little easier. Like, one trick I have is I get dressed in my workout clothes when I get up. That means I don't have to get dressed. It's just a little easier to do. I used to go to the gym. See, I get dressed in my workout clothes, go to the gym. Well, I'm already there. I may as well do some stuff because I'm already there. Someone might see me go in and change. I could change. So make it so there is no barrier. Same thing as I could go down and eat a lot of cookies right now, except I would have to make them. Like, there is flour down there, and there's flour, butter, and sugar, or whatever you put in cookies. And I know I could look it up online. I know I could do it. I'm not doing it. It's too much of a barrier. But if they were in stock, it would be very easy for me to do it. Now, as far as things which are not in your control, first of all, I would say that many things you think are not in your control are more in your control than you think. Like, I know people that put a sign on their door. My son-in-law works at home, and he's got two kids, which are 5 and 7, and he puts a sign on his door, working. And the kids, 5-year-olds, know that means daddy's working. I can't bother daddy. But it's not. I mean, they could they could open the door if they wanted to. Another thing that everything you read, and I do believe, is my workspace is not my play space. So there's certain things I don't do from my work computer. I actually don't even check the news on my work computer. Like if I want to look at news, I go to my other space where I can play internet chess or watch a movie or whatever. That's a different mode when I sit in my easy chair as opposed to my office chair that I'm sitting in now. It's an office chair. It's not a.
Right. And do you think that's partly something that goes on in our brains when we set up that particular habit that says, when I sit here, I only read, or I only study, or I only do work? Something triggers in your brain to switch on?
Absolutely. Before this happened, I have a chair, which is my reading chair. And when I sit at my reading chair, I have Post-it notes. I have a pen. I've got a highlighter. I've got a notepad. And so I don't have to get up to go get a pen. And I just am in that mode. When I sit in the chair, I read. But when I'm not in the chair, I don't read. I play or whatever. So I think that psychologically.
So that's the importance then. Do you think that might be one of the most ways to stay productive, is having a dedicated workspace?
I think having a dedicated workspace is great. And if you can't have a whole workspace, it can be any other habit that you can tie it to. And that's what happens with habits. Some people who want to stop smoking, well, you stop drinking because you're used to smoking when you drink. Or if you, for that matter, you want to stop your drinking, don't go to a bar. You go to a bar, you're going to drink. You don't go to a bar, maybe you're not going to. So it's all about, a lot of it's about triggers, what triggers you to do something or not.
Now, Jim, you are an incredibly busy CEO. So my question for you would be, is it a fair assumption to say that many people in your situation, so many employers, one of their stresses is that the work might not be getting done? And if that's the case, what can people do who work for someone else do for their boss to help them ease their concerns that it's not getting done?
So what I would do, it's all about communication. And so the simplest thing is a daily report or a weekly report. At the same time, at some points I get overwhelmed with what I call CYA emails, because everyone wants to carbon copy me on everything. And it can be a lot of email volume. So in my opinion, it's mostly about communication. And what a boss really wants is results. If you can get results and be effective, like, that's what really counts. But if you can't for sure get results, then show the results of action. For example, you may not be able to sell more today because you're calling on stores that aren't open, or you're trying to, like I sell wine coolers. Nobody's going to buy a wine cooler right now. It's just not top of mind. Why would you buy a wine cooler right now? I guess maybe you're work at home, but so if you can't sell right now, then what are the great? I made 12 calls. I called on these people. I sent this. I did that. Right. So, and I also will say I'm an old time boss, so I like having people in the office. But after this experience of having people work at home, we will probably never go back to, like, I will have some work at home, if not every day, multiple days per week. I find that there is a certain percentage of people are actually more effective at home. And now there's some of them are so effective that I need to coach them on, listen, do not sit at your work desk all day until 10 o'clock. Like, you need to go home. You are home. It doesn't mean that you're working till midnight. You should also turn off.
So I'm really glad that you brought that up too, because this pandemic is going to definitely create some global changes. And I heard somebody say it so brilliantly. They said, instead of saying, why did this happen to me, or why is this happening to me? What if you switched it around and said, maybe this is happening for me? So can you see so far, I mean, there's been, of course, lots of obstacles and lots of challenges that you've had to face as a business owner, but in your own business and in your own life, and even globally in the world in terms of pollution, have you been able to say, you know what, there's some benefits that will come out of this very difficult time?
So there is a lot of benefits. So the pollution is one of the obvious. I mean, there's a lot less cars on the road. Like I could go, like I live in Guelph. I could drive to downtown Toronto right now in probably 45 minutes or 50 minutes, where it was an hour and a half, and sometimes it'd be 2 hours, and it's a nightmare. Now, no traffic and better for the environment. I also think to some extent it could impact people in a positive way, that they realize health is trumps wealth, health trumps everything, and will it can help relationships. It can help. Although what they say is during this time you have a lot more domestic abuse and divorces and babies. So you can have,
and babies.
so it's a, you can be one or the other. There's multiple extremes on all ends. I also think that there can be an efficiency in some people working at home, and that will be a permanent forever. I believe there will be more gratitude in the world, because I think after this, like a month ago, people were not even grateful to have a job, because they can get a job anywhere. Most people, well, it may not be the job they love, but now it's like, gee, I'm pretty grateful. I get a job. I get paid. That's a pretty cool thing, right?
And I have to ask you a question, because you were talking about you've switched over to building ventilators. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, I put the Danby design team on making ventilators, because if you look at problems in the world, I always try to solve the problems in the world. We don't have enough ventilators. And will we be successful in doing it? I put together a consortium of companies. We put all of our resources. We've got one of our lines that we are repurposing to make ventilators. We have not got approvals yet. We haven't locked the design in yet. What may happen is, my hope is the world doesn't need the ventilators they think they need. Great. We don't do anything. But it could be that they do, and it could be that we solve the problem. It could be that we supply 10,000 ventilators, and it means that a lot less people die. It could be. So it's kind of a backup belt and suspenders. Another reason I'm doing it, though, is also I have a need to try to do something when I see that there's an issue. I could say, oh, I'm just going to social distance and I'm going to sit at home and whatnot. That's not in my nature. My nature is, how can I solve it? So a lot of people feel helpless right now. That energizes me to say, great, I'll work till 2 o'clock in the morning because I'm going to solve this for people. So I might be the hero, but on the other hand, you could just go into oblivion. You never need my equipment. So we'll see.
I think sometimes that some people feel helpless because they don't believe that they can be a part of problem solving. So can you share with us, because you shared with me one time, how you have this format where you take out a piece of paper and you have a problem and you'll write the problem in the middle, and then you sort of brainstorm over time possible solutions. So for those at home that are watching that might have a problem or a worry or fear, what are some of the possible ways that they can brainstorm using that strategy?
So I call that a splatter diagram. I don't know whether you can Google that or not, whether that's my phrase, but you're right. You put in the middle ventilators, for instance, and then I put a line saying design one. Well, if you're going to design one, let's buy a design. If I'm going to design one, well, let's reach out to JPM Engineering because they've got some some experience we don't have. Oh, and then let's. I've got another friend who's a doctor. Let's talk to the doctor. Oh, but he's not an intensive care doctor, so let's call the hospital. And so it basically is a diagram that's non-linear that grows, especially in this ventilator project. That is one where I am keeping active multiple streams. I have multiple design teams. Some of them don't even work for me. Many of them don't even work for me. These are other companies. These are people you put the task to. And because I don't care at the end of the day whether we make a ventilator that we designed or whether we make one that you designed. I'm going on your show. You're going to email me later and say, "Oh, Jim, here's a ventilator I designed on the weekend. I'll make yours." I don't care. And the same thing is true actually on production. We are repurposing one of our production lines. There's a probability or possibility we'll never be able to use it because we've applied for Health Canada Clean Room Certified. We think we're going to be clean enough, but maybe we're not going to be. In which case, we've reached out to companies that have clean certification, and can we use their facility? Can they build it for us? So I don't care. What I want is I want a solution to the problem. I keep telling all the engineers and everybody, this is a no ego thing. So I know that you built a little actuator and you think you're very proud of the actuator. We decide we're not using the actuator. We're using something else. Doesn't matter. Solves the problem.
What's great about that line of thinking is it's really showing us how oftentimes we have roadblock thinking where we're like, well, I could try that. Oh, but then I'm going to get this roadblock. But rather than you seeing it as a roadblock, you just see it as something else that you have to get around. You're like, oh, okay, well, then I'll try this and then I'll try this. So instead of thinking, well, that'll be a dead end or that'll be a dead end, it's like, oh, no, that's not a dead end. That's a fork in the road for different direction.
Exactly. I mean, this is a classic project that may never go anywhere, but I wouldn't want. There's one expression that motivates me always, and it's you don't want to say that you stood by and did nothing. So you know my previous, the refugee project. So why do you do that? I don't want to die and say I stood by and did nothing. Can you imagine if we had the same situation that Italy now has? You show up at the hospital, you're 70 years old, they say, okay, go die on the gurney in the hall. We don't have any respirators. We don't have any ventilators. That's all. So can you imagine? I don't want to say I stood by and did nothing. It could be that I did I devoted my whole engineering, my design team, my production. I did everything, and I was never able to produce one, and the same situation happened. But at least I tried. I tried. Some other people didn't try. And at the same time, even if we contribute something to someone else who solves it, we've still done something, right? Can someone else take it over?
And that creates that one thing that people need in their lives to give them hope, and that's purpose. We all need to have a purpose when we wake up in the morning. And so the fear of the unknown of what's happening, if you can say, hey, I'm going to look at ways today that I can contribute in any way that I can contribute to make this world a better place right now, then that purpose is what will give you that excitement and the hope.
Exactly. No, I'm a total believer. And purpose energizes. By that purpose. I'm not energized by, like there's a lot of people say, oh, you should be energized to retire. You should be energized to, isn't this great? You get time off. No, who wants time off? Like, no, you got the wrong person.
Okay, well, listen, we still have 7 minutes left. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I'm just going to check here. I think everybody's just so enthralled listening to this incredible conversation. I'm just so excited to see you. It's been a little while, and I know what. I have a question. Do you recommend that people get up when they have a work day and shower just like they would as if they were going to work, get dressed and go to work? Or do you think it's up to you, work in your pajamas, whatever you like?
I actually do believe that you should dress for work. I believe you totally should dress for work. And I was asked by this other guy we're doing this thing in Waterloo, a whole bunch of messages from Waterloo business leaders, and he said he wants to do business. And so that was my tip was, get dressed for work and do it. And then I was going to stand up and show that I was wearing my shorts, but as I walk away. But yes, I absolutely believe you should dress as if you were working. I mean, here I'm dressed. I've got my Danby shirt on. You see?
Yes.
Because I have other video interviews, and so yeah, I totally do it.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on this show, and I value your time. So I think we're all done, unless you had a closing thought.
No, I'm all good. So thank you very much, Denise.
Well, thank you. I'm going to send everyone who's on a recording of our webinar today. And also make sure to join me on Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. The lead pastor for the Embassy Church, Doug Snyder, is going to be talking with us about finding opportunity in the storm. So I'll see you Tuesday. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Denise.
Bye.
Bye.